welcome back to my channel. Happy New Year. It is now 2021 and I know I've been super slacking. I've been so inconsistent, but I'm back. I'm back with another story time. So today I found myself, I was just thinking like, you ever think of like just the crazy stuff that you dealt with in like old relationships and you just never really like, it's like you think about it, but you don't realize how crazy it is until you're telling somebody else. So that's where we are today. Oh, and as you see, I went ahead and did something to this face, little hair situation. This is actually a U-part wig that I made. I made them by hand, hot glue gun method. It's super easy. If y'all want me to teach you how to do it, not a problem. Took like 30 minutes, if that. And the hair is from my girl Anisha. Black Sugar Kisses, yes. And lashes are Lashing Out Las Vegas. So yeah, so this story time is about this guy that I dated who tried to kill me. So we started dating. So I actually met him. This story is from so long ago. So I met him some years ago and actually met him on Valentine's Day. He was my best friend's boyfriend's best friend. Yeah. And I ended up meeting him. We didn't really talk initially, but later on he ended up telling me like, oh, I'm really interested in you. I wanted to talk to you when I met you, but I didn't, blah, blah, blah. Cause he was kind of quiet. So we ended up, there was a night, it was St. Patrick's Day. I remember this day specifically because this day was just chaotic. Like it was a whole mess. So we had plans to go out. So me and my girl, we'll call her Ashley. Me and her get dressed and we're like, okay, so her other friend is going to meet us out at this club that we used to go to at the time. And so her other friend, will call her Brianna. And so we get to the club and we can't find Brianna. She calls us randomly and she's like, oh my God, guys, I'm in the parking lot, just drunk. And we're like, okay. But Brianna had just had like some DV issues earlier that day. And the person that she had those issues with, she was like, he's here. Oh my God, he's here. So we get out, we go to like the line, because this is a club that we went to like all the time. So the security guards, they knew us. So we go to security and we're like, hey, our friend is kind of having an issue. So if you could have one of the guys go kind of find her, look for her, whatever, then, we'll feel a lot more okay. So security's like, okay, fine. I'll go check. I'll have one of the guys go check. So me and my girl, we're walking to the line and we actually see her guy and my guy, who we'll call Rashad. I don't know. So we'll call him Rashad. So we see them in line and I ask her guy, I'm like, hey, have you seen her? And he's like, nah, I ain't seen her. So we're like, okay. So I go to like hug my guy and he's real like non-responsive. Like I'm hugging him and it's not even phasing him that I'm hugging him. Like there was no response. Like you would have literally no response. So so me and my girl, we go get in line. We're like, whatever. Actually, I think we got in line like with them, like right behind them or something. So we get inside the club. We're there for like maybe 20 minutes or so. And then here comes Brianna strolling in just drunk. And we're like, okay, well, we know she's okay. So we're in the club and just earlier that day, because of like the issues that happened, like Brianna's like, I'm never talking to him again. I don't want nothing to do with him. I hate him, blah, blah, blah. So we're like, okay, but of course she's drunk. So now it's complete opposite story. She's like in this man's face, whatever. So I'm trying to like dance on my man and, talk to him and all this stuff. And he is ignoring me like no other. I don't know how to explain it. It was like I was talking to a wall or trying to dance on a wall. I was getting literally no response from this man at all. So I'm just like, what the hell? So I asked his friend, I'm like, hey, is he good? And he's like, yeah, right. I'm like, okay, well, is he drunk? And he's like, nah. I was like, is he high? He's like, sorta. I'm like, what is sorta? So I'm like, all right, whatever. So I think I tried to dance with him like a few more times, tried to like hug him, kiss him, or whatever. No response. So he had a ring that he always wore. I think the ring was like his grandfather's ring, I believe. And so when we started dating, I was wearing the ring. So I was like, when y'all, I have the absolute lowest tolerance for people and their BS or making me feel any type of way. So I took the ring off and I gave it back to him. I took the ring off and I slid it on his finger and I went off on about my way. Because I'm not going to sit here trying to, be all upon you and be all extra affectionate and you're not even acknowledging me. Like, no. So, yeah, so that night, so afterwards, so my girl Ashley, her house after the club was always like the hangout spot. And so Brianna's like, oh, hey, my guy and Rashad and all of them, they're all going to come back over to your house. Is that cool? And so Ashley's like, yeah, sure, whatever. So we all get to her house. Rashad, my friend's guy, like everybody's there. It's like them plus like 3 of their other friends or whatever. And then just the 3 of us. So, Rashad and his friends leave. Mind you, it's probably, at that time, clubs closed at like, I think that club closed at like 2:30. So so they left. So by the time we got back to her house, it's probably like 3-ish in the morning. I want to say it's like 3 something. So the guys leave. So mind you, still the whole time that we're at the house, Rashad is saying nothing to me. Absolutely nothing. And it's so weird because I have no clue what's going on. So I'm just like, okay, bro, whatever. Like, you don't ever have to talk to me again as far as I'm concerned. So they leave. Brianna ends up leaving with him. Ashley, she ends up going and laying down. And so now it's like almost 4 o'clock in the morning. And Rashad is texting me and he's like, hey, what are you doing? I was like, about to lay down. He's like, well, you should come over. And I'm like, come over? You haven't even talked to me. Like, oh, like, what? What do you mean come over? So I go, so he's like, well, he's like, no, I really want you to come over. I'm so sorry for how I was acting. I just really want you to come over. Tell Ashley I'll give her gas money if she brings you. And so, because back then I didn't have a car. None of us really had cars back then. So yeah, but my girl, she had a car. So he's like, tell Ashley I'll give her gas if she brings you. So I'm like, all right, cool. So I go ask Ashley how to wake her up, and I'm like, hey, and mind you, did I have a license? I had a license, but I was a sucky driver back then. Like, you did not want me driving your car. So, so normally, if it was any other circumstance, she probably would have been like, yeah, take my car or whatever, but nah. So I'm like, hey, he really wants me to come over. Do you mind taking me? She was like, man, all right, whatever. So she gets up, she takes me. So I get over there and we're chilling or whatever, and adult activities ensue. And in the midst of that, so I guess to be a little graphic here, I'm on top of him and he makes a comment and he goes, so one thing to know about me is I'm always, no matter what the situation is, I'm always completely rational. I'm logical, rational. Like, there is no, I'm in this situation, so I wasn't thinking straight. No, I'm always thinking straight. So he makes a comment and he's like, I'm gonna come inside you. You're gonna do what? When I tell you I hopped off that man so fast, I was like, whoa, sir, no. And he's like, what? Why would you stop for? Like, what would you say that for? I was just saying it in the moment. And I'm like, in the moment? No. So he sits up next to me. So I'm like sitting on the bed, like looking at him crazy, like, bruh, no. He sits up next to me and he opens his wallet. He like picks his wallet. He pulls his wallet out of his jeans pocket or whatever. And he takes out this little bag. Y'all, the closest, like, mind you, I did not try weed until I was 21, okay? So drugs, no, hadn't really been around them like that, okay? So, yeah, he takes this little bag out of his wallet and he's like, well, he opens the bag and he took like his house key and he sprinkled it on his key. And I'm like, is that cool? And he's like, yeah, you want some? No. So I'm like, no, you good. That's all you, bro. You got that. So he literally snorts it off the key. And I'm like, wow, okay, all right. So he does that, and then like a few minutes pass, and I'm like, is this why you've been acting like this all day? Like, what is this? What, like, really? So then he goes off. He just goes the fuck off. You know what? I didn't even want you here anymore. You need to leave. Like, this man is never, I don't think he'd ever yelled at me ever, but he was yelling at me like at the top of his lungs. He's like, I want you to leave. You gotta go. I don't want you here anymore. Da-da-da-da-da. And I'm just like, it's like 4 in the morning. Where am I going? And my stupid self, I left because I was like, okay, well, my girl's gonna come back and get me. I'm like, I left my wallet at her house. Stupid me. I know. So left my wallet at her house. And so, I'm just thinking, I'm like, how am I going to get out of here? So now, for whatever reason, I have no clue why I ended up this way, but I did. I was sitting on his bedroom floor. Sitting on his bedroom floor, naked. Why? I don't know, because I had roaches. So, yeah. So, he had a computer tower, you know, like a computer tower. He had a computer tower, and he had like it was like a 15 or 20 pound weight that he always had that was sitting on top of this tower. And so I'm sitting on the floor and I'm crying. Like, I am bawling my eyes out because I'm terrified. This man is like screaming at me. It's early in the morning. I don't even have no money to go nowhere to try to get home. Nothing. Like, my phone, like, I don't even know. So he literally picks this weight up and he holds it above my head, and he's holding it with like 2 fingers. And he's holding it above my head, and he's like, if I drop this, you think you'll die? The fuck do you mean, do you think I'll die? Yeah, I'm pretty sure I will. Yeah. So he's holding it, he's dangling it for a minute, and he puts it down. And I'm like, oh, hell no. I gotta go. Got to go. So I call my best guy friend. Well, no, first I called Ashley just to see if maybe she was awake, because Ashley is a sleeper. When she sleep, ain't no waking her up. So I called her. She didn't answer. I think I called her like twice. She didn't answer. And I'm like, okay, let me call my friend. So I call my friend. We'll call him Anthony. I call him and I'm like, hey, what are you doing? Because I knew that he had to go to school, and he usually had to be at school at like, I think like 6, 7 or something. Because right by this time it's like 5 o'clock in the morning. So I think he had to be to school like 6:30, something like that. So I call him because I know he's up, and he's like he's always up super early. Call him, he answers. I'm like, hey, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm getting ready for school. What's up? I'm like, hey, I am in a really crappy situation right now. Do you mind coming to pick me up? Excuse me. Now, mind you, he also lived clear across town. So it was going to be like a 20-minute drive for him to even get to me. I was not close at all. So he's like, well, where are you at? And so I tell him, he's like, man, I got you. He's like, you know, I would, but I gotta get to school. I can't even like be late anymore. Like, I was like, you know what? Don't even worry about it. It's good. Don't worry about it. Cause I mean, for me, as much as I feel like I needed the help, I can't push that off on nobody else. Like, I always try to be as accountable as possible for my actions. So, you know, if nobody can help, I got to figure out how to get me out this shit. So, so hang up with him. So I'm sitting there. I'm like, okay. I call my girl like 3 more times. She finally answers. And I'm like, hey, I know you're going to hate me, but I need you to come get me. And she's just like, I don't even think she said anything. I think she just hung up. She's just like, all right, and hung up. So I knew she lived from her. It was like 10, 15-minute drive. She comes and gets me. Well, she gets to the house. When I tell you, this man picked me up and carried me out of his house and sat me on his front lawn and sat outside with me until she came. Yeah. She came. I think he gave her gas. It was like $10 or something like that. I get in the car. I am bawling. She didn't even ask what was wrong. She knew, but like, I knew she was mad. So I was just like, we're not good. We'll talk about this tomorrow. So I am like bawling my eyes out, get in the car. We get to her house. We did not speak a word to each other for the rest of the night. Get to her house. We go to sleep. I think we just wake up again. And we didn't wake up until probably like afternoon-ish, something like that. So then we finally have a conversation. I tell her what happened, and she's just like, what? Like, he's crazy. Like, what do you mean? And I'm like, don't worry about it. Like, I'm so done with him. Like, I don't want nothing else to do with him. It's like, don't, girl, it's good. So, like, I want to say like a month passes, not even a month, like 2 weeks pass. And at this time, I had some issues with, like, me and my parents are kind of, having our own little issues. So I moved in with her for like a little bit. I was literally at her house for like 2 weeks. Moved in with her for a little bit. And at some point, I just started feeling like weird. And I couldn't explain the type of weird. Because it was like I ended up catching like a fever when I was there. I'd never had a fever in my entire life. Like, I've had the flu shot one time ever. I didn't even get sick then. I'm not a person who gets sick too often. So I had a fever, and I only realized it was because it was a fever because she worked like a mile from her house. She worked at Target at the time, and I locked myself out of her house. She took the key. She's like, "Hey, do you plan on going anywhere? Do you want me to leave the key?" I didn't have any intentions on going anywhere. So I was like, "Oh, don't worry about it. Take the key." And then I said, "Oh, I'm going to walk to the store and lock myself out the house." So now I'm like trying to walk. So now I don't realize I'm stuck out the house. It was like 100 degrees outside. So I walked to her house. I mean, not walk to her house, walk to her job. And I felt like I was going to die the entire walk there. A mile is not a long walk, but I felt like I was going to die that entire walk. So get there. She ends up taking me back, and she's like, "You good? Like, what's wrong?" And I'm like, "Man, I don't know." I was like, "But I feel like I need to take a pregnancy test because something is not right." So I think the next day, we went to Planned Parenthood. I took a pregnancy test. It came back negative. Awesome. So when things happen the way that I want them to happen, I go celebrate. I celebrate. So we went to Baskin Robbins and got ice cream. So yeah, so that was that. And then like so that once I left her house, so I was probably at her house for like 2 weeks, and then I went and I stayed at my grandma's. And so staying at my grandma's, so then the whole time I was there, I want to say maybe a week into me moving in there, I got so sick. When I tell you guys, I dropped like 30 pounds in a month. Not exaggerating. I dropped 30 pounds in a month. That's how sick I was. I could not hold down water. I couldn't hold down nothing. I couldn't hold down anything. Brushing my teeth, I'd vomit. The smell of anything, I would vomit. Like, I couldn't even, like, in order for me to be able to hold down food, I had to drink Pepsi and then eat. And the only thing I could eat was lasagna. Why was lasagna? I don't know. But something in me said, go get a pregnancy test. I go to Walmart. She lived right around the corner from Walmart. So I walk and I go. Or I think I actually got it when we were at the grocery store, but I like snuck it in the cart because our stuff was separate. So got a pregnancy test, got back to the house. I took it, positive. So I refused. So I didn't even tell my grandma. I didn't tell her what was going on. I refused to tell her. I refused to tell anybody. The only person I knew, I think, was my friend. So my grandma's like, "You know what?" Like, she just started noticing that I was losing weight and I was sick as hell. And she's like, "Girl, something is wrong with you. You need to go to the hospital. I'm gonna call your mom. Call your mom because she needs to take you to the hospital." So I call my mom. She literally lived down the street. She comes, and so she takes me to the hospital. And I think we went to the emergency room, actually. Get to the emergency room. Doctor's like, they run all these tests. He's like, "Is it possible that you're pregnant?" And I'm like, maybe, not really. I don't know. Like, playing dumb. Mind you, I was an adult, okay? It wasn't like I was 16, 17. I was like 22. So, but I just refused. I refused to tell my mom this. So, they run a pregnancy test, of course, because they do that anytime you go to the ER. And they're like, "Well, you're pregnant." So I'm like, wow. So in my mind was already made up. I'm not having a baby. It's not happening. So my mind was completely made, like, immediately. So yeah, so then we leave there. And I want to say like a few days later, I was walking to the store or something, and something said, call him and tell him. So I call him, and he's like, and I was just like, "Hey, just so you know, I'm pregnant." And he's like, oh, okay. I was like, "But I'm not keeping it." And he's like, "Well, what the fuck are you calling me for if your mind's already made up?" You didn't even need to tell me anything. You're right. But I figured I'd let you know. I didn't want it to be a secret, so I figured I would let you know. And so, and then he hangs up on me. He literally hangs up on me the entire time that I was pregnant, because I think I had to wait, like, the doctor didn't have any she didn't have any like upcoming appointments, so I think I had to wait like a week or two or something like that to even get anything done. So the whole time I'm dealing with this, like, he would call and check, but it wouldn't be like caring. It would be like, I would say I'm sick, and he'd be like, well, are you sure that you're sick because of that? Are you sure you're not sick because of something else? It wouldn't be like, I don't even know how to explain it. It was just real aggravating. Like, I hated talking to him. So, went ahead, got the procedure done. And when I tell you, that was probably the happiest day ever. As miserable as I was so happy, because it was just like, that is not somebody I wanted to be trapped or attached to forever. No, like, mm-mm. And yeah, that was the man who I thought he was going to kill me, and my first time ever being pregnant. Yeah. Now, for me personally, because I know a lot of people are, pro-life and all these things, I had to do what worked best for me. And me looking at that situation, I knew a baby was not going to be something that we needed. And that wasn't somebody I was also trying to be tied to. So again, I had to be rational and do things that made sense. And for that situation, a baby did not need to be here. So yeah, I don't regret it. I don't feel bad about it. I mean, I still think about it to this day, but I don't feel bad about it. So I always say, do what works best for you and your life and what you have happening. Yeah. So that is my story on the man that had me thinking he was about to kill me. And apparently now my abortion story. I wasn't planning on adding that in there, but it's there now. So yeah. So thank you everyone for, if you watch this, thank you. Please like, comment, and subscribe. I would love to see you guys here for the next one. I'm trying to figure out my recording schedule, but I would love to see you guys again, and thank you for being here. Appreciate it.